high time now for our tune of the week.
Come on, let's go.
This is the Media Industry Guru Show, the show that exposes you to entertainment, music, film, TV, and tech.
We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
Hey, Shadoe, welcome to the Media Industry Guru podcast. Very excited to hear things all in the radio broadcasting industry and what you've been up to with mental radio.
Yeah, well, where should we start? Should we start, we want to leap right into mental radio, or should we talk about the scope of, all of the stuff I've done? It's kind of daunting. Failure caused me to learn a lot of things. And I changed direction, and basically career is always in the arts, but many times because I would hit a wall. It's like I got started really young. I built a radio station in my house when I was 10 years old and broadcast to a mile in every direction. And then they discovered me in my pirate station and put me on the air as the world's youngest disc jockey when I was 11. And I was painting monster T-shirts in a mall when I was a teenager, and thought, well, what I really want to do is I want to be an artist. So I went to the University of North Dakota, majoring in art and putting myself through school with radio. And then in my fourth year of college, I moved to the University of Arizona and changed my major to art and journalism so that I could learn to write and perform. And then radio took over, and television and all of the other things I've done.
Yeah.
And each one, you reach a plateau sometimes and you can't get beyond it. And it's like, I don't know what else to do. I'll do that. And then what else do I have to learn? So, that's kind of been the story of my life. And I've gone through these career arcs that have had big successes for a moment in time, hit a wall and go, now what?
Mm-hmm.
So there's always something else to learn.
And what made you develop mental radio after the eclectic years of work experience, hosting American Top 40, K-Rock, being on live television?
At the pinnacle, I've always been, my first fascination when I was 10 years old was doing stories. And I'm sure they were terrible. I don't have any recordings, but I would do them on my dad's tape recorder. And I've always been in love with audio theater. And I did it all through the 70s. When I started K-Rock in Los Angeles, one of the things I did was produce shows that told stories. And I did it because it was fun for me. And then I did it at KMET, and then I went into advertising, and I did all of the advertising for the Blues Brothers movie and Fast Times at Ridgemont High and 48 Hours, and it was always writing and producing. And when I got into what happened was when COVID hit, and I have this elaborate studio, and I can do basically anything I can think of. The reason I have it is because of failure. And out of failure came, I have to learn Pro Tools. I have to learn Photoshop. I have to learn Final Cut. Okay, because I don't want to have to count on anybody. Mm-hmm. And because that's the problem, when you start thinking, well, I need a studio. Well, I need really need how about if I don't have to count on anybody giving me a studio and anybody, doing the artwork and anybody doing the production? How do I learn it? And so I had learned it all. And then little by little, I built this up. Now, I did this back in the 70s when I was real successful in radio and built 3 #1 radio stations. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't take radio anymore. It's like the politics and the backstabbing and the, everything about it was, if I'm going to work that hard, I'm going to go for bigger stakes. So I started a production company, and I wrote commercials and produced them in order to buy equipment. And then little by little, I got more and more equipment. Now today, you can get that equipment really inexpensively, and a lot of it will fit on your iPhone. But it wasn't always like that. So now I have this fancy studio, and I think I'm going to be locked up, and I find everybody is depressed. Everybody is freaking out. And what can I do that would be creative and uplifting? So I sat by myself in here and started to write. And I came up with a whole mythology of mental radio. And it's like mental radio as in telepathy, broadcasting a kind of euphoric transmission that would uplift the world. The idea was that everything would come from a former Masonic temple somewhere in Hollywood. And it's from that temple that we greet you and welcome you in. And there are theaters and labs and research centers and the opera house and the outlook chamber at the pinnacle at the top of the temple, from where we tell stories. So we'll go into the media center, and there's a lot of wordplay in it. And so I started doing it, and I would do all the voices. And then I started getting people that wanted to contribute. The first one was Chuck Serino, who had been my director when I did the Federated commercials. Now together, we did 1,100 commercials over a period of about 6 years. And we would do 6 or 8 television commercials a week. And no commercial ever lasted longer than 10 days, and they were all funny. Now, he was the director and has since become not only a director, but he does special effects, and he is a world-class music composer. So I said, do you have any music that you own the rights to? And he goes, yes, I've been paid to do all these movies that never came out. You can have whatever you want. So now I have this cinematic music. It's really fabulous. It's like John Williams, it's like Morricone, it's like the best of the best. And I can use it to tell my stories. So the stories might include things like parodies. Marilyn Croker created the names of over 500 drugs. And she plays the game Drugs or Cheese on NPR, and it sounds just like it's on NPR. There's a character called Guy Good. It's a Western. And Guy and Gabby go out to head across the desert to stop the gloom before it heads to the big cities. And they are attacked by Wymies. Wymies are victims. They're like zombies with guns. And he'll come out of a saloon, and the saloon owner is Limon Souffle. And he says, I got a feeling there's a flare-up on a rampage over in Decadence, and we got to put the whammy on it before it takes down the whole caboodle. It's all that kind of like Western talk. And I do this. In fact, do you have any of the audio that you can play?
Yeah, I can play some of it.
Why don't you play that Mighty Man intro? Because Mighty Man's one of my favorite characters. We'll find that Mighty Man is one of my favorites because it's a parody of 1950s Superman.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. 6 out of 10 times he can fly.
Look, up in the sky. It's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's Mighty Man. Yes, Mighty Man, who can time warp, shapeshift, gun steal, and dream danger on occasion.
Good Lord, it stopped. It seemed to have stopped. That's wrong on so many levels.
Froze.
Well, that's okay. We don't need to play the whole thing. You get the idea, and the idea is built around the conceit that that mighty man. He was bit by a radioactive gnat, and he is so he has powers, but not all the time. So on occasion, he will suddenly be transformed, and he will take a leap, and run, down the hallway and jump through a window like Superman, and fly into the air with a just like 1950 Superman, and fall 9 stories into the concrete below. It hurts. It hurts a lot. But he lives, of course, because he's mighty man. And then the next time he does it, and things go well. But his name is well, like in the first episode, the Darius Fullivit, the chairman of Chronic Foods, glares at a team of gourmet snack food connoisseurs, and he wants to put the additive that's addictive, Crave, in every chocolate crunch munchie. But his partner is standing in the way just because they found brain worms in some laboratory tests. So he sends Darnell Babalama to give him bada bing and throw him off a roof. And of course, Mighty Man saves the day. But you get the idea that there are all of these different kinds of things. And then we talk in the Outlook Chamber, we'll talk about real things. So in an episode about joy, where do we find it? How do we find it? Is it a surge of more than enough, and time stops and we get lost in a moment of that words diminish, and we are lost in waves of intoxicating euphoric rapture? What is joy? So we'll talk about joy, and then we'll talk about meditation, because the idea is you get ahead of your mind with goals and dreams and learning things and trying things. And out of the action of trying, you get a little excitement, and then you get a little enthusiasm, and then you get a little inspiration, and then you see something come to life that you didn't know before, and now you know more, and then you start seeing it. And this is the concept of the art of creativity, that you start by practices that are actions, because you can't think your way happy, and you can't think your way creative. You have to take action. So in terms of what you are talking about, which is, what do you recommend for being in the world of creativity? It is writing, and more writing, and reading, and writing, and researching, and learning all the tools. So you don't have to count on anybody, because these days, it's all well and good to be an actor, and yeah, there are great skills you have to learn, but it's maybe not enough. And you've got the tools now to be able to learn anything really inexpensively by just making the effort. So one of the things I suggest is that you note-taking. The smartest people in the history of the world have been note-takers. Leonardo da Vinci wrote notes aggressively, and he wrote them backwards so you could only read them in a mirror, because some people think maybe he was afraid that his inventions and thoughts would be the subject of getting him burned at the stake by the Roman Catholic Church. No one really knows why, but that's the way he did it. And I learned it from, when I was very young, I was the sidekick to a very famous man called Steve Allen. And Steve was before Johnny Carson. And Steve not only was a brilliant comedian and host and writer and musician, and he played all these different instruments and wrote hundreds of songs. And while I'm on the show with him, during the commercials, he would be writing furiously. He wouldn't talk to people. He would be right. And I said, "What are you writing?" He said, "I never want to miss a thought. I never want to miss an impulse of something someone said, a word someone said, an idea that came to mind, and I don't worry about it. I don't edit it." And so that's the basis of brainstorming. Brainstorming is you know you're going to have to write a poem. You're going to write a script. You know you're going to write a story. You know you're going to write an ad, and that's the template. And you write everything that comes to mind without editing. So you don't think about, oh, that's a bad idea. I'm never going to write that one. That's stupid. You don't like block yourself up. It comes to you, you write it down. If you get to a place where you can't think of anything, you write, I can't think of anything. And while you're writing, I can't think of anything, the word mellifluous comes and you go, mellifluous, that's a great word. I got to write that down. Mellifluous. And then another word comes and you go, bellow. Bellow is a great word, bellow. Chronic. Right? So then all of a sudden I have these words and these ideas down on pages and pages, and they become the puzzle pieces that the universe feeds me through for when I'm writing my stuff. So I have little notebooks that I'm carrying with me all the time. They're in the car. I'll pull over and I'll write a note down. I'll hear something on the radio. I'll hear something in Starbucks. I'll see it on a billboard. And these become the puzzle pieces by which I will write. Dixon Ticonderoga is one of my characters, a writer looking for trouble. And he goes to the end of the world. And at the lofty peak at a meridian between Melancholy and Basket Case, he finds an outpost, the pinnacle cut the mustard deli and pickle. And he goes into the deli and he finds Morty. Morty's the oracle. And Morty says, have a sandwich. We got the Zuckerberg half-baked pastrami, the Elon Musk chopped liver, the Bezos barbecue brisket. For you, I think the Dalai Lama Club. You say, why would a Dalai Lama? Because we think you need something that'll hit you over the head. And we find that there's a little Morty in every bite. And then from then it becomes a Mel Brooks movie. Now, where did all those ideas come from? They came from Cut the Mustard, an idea. A deli that is a place where we find hope. What a funny idea. I wrote one where a man falls into a manhole in the pouring rain, and he grabs for a wall, and a tear falls from his eye, and it lands on a slug, who flicks it off onto a leech, who twitches, and it lands in the mouth of a rat, and it bears a satisfied rat smile, and a beam of light from the moon strikes the sparkle of the rat's pointed teeth and ricochets into the sky, burning a symbol on a cloud, a symbol that can only mean one thing, a sign. Brock Stillwell, a square-jawed jackhammer of a man in a plaid shirt, comes to the rescue. And from then, it gets funny. Where did these ideas come from? Came from brainstorming. And then brainstorming provides the tools that you use, and then you start getting the excitement. So now I've got these places to start, and I start. Sometimes it's just word by word. The mellifluous bellow of chronic reality became a piece of art that I did. I did this series of 12 pieces called The Transdimensional Symbolism of Rocky Waters. And Rocky Waters is a metaphor for difficult times. And Rocky is this 1950s era football player who's kicking a field goal. So his arms are outstretched, Christ-like, and he's kicking this field goal. And in the first piece, it says, just when he thought he was winning the game, fate took a turn down a blind alley, and suddenly he was confronted by fear and doubt and change. So each of the pieces is a different reflection of his mind as it goes. And the mellifluous bellow is, he's feeling really small today in this little tiny piece of him, in this giant piece of art. And in it are all of these cars that are moving on freeways. And Rocky is is unaware of the vehicles of change his past actions have set in motion, all leading to a vanishing point that is paradise right below his feet, and he can't see it. So it's stuff like that that becomes the magic of creativity, and it all is based on not trying to think of the best idea, but just little micro habits, note taking, at finding words here. And what happens is, like, you decide to buy a car, you're going to buy a Toyota. Never thought about Toyotas. Who cares? But now, all of a sudden, all you see everywhere are Toyotas. There's a red one and a green one and an ugly Corolla. And oh, look at that one. That one's kind of nice. I wonder what that one is. And and all of a sudden the universe is giving you clues. And it's like where your mind is set, where you're focused, is where the universe will start leading you. And you find these in the tools that you brainstorm and gush out and note take. And then you make the effort. And as you know, you write, and then you rewrite, and then you rewrite, and then you rewrite, and then you rewrite, and you fine tune, and you go sentence by sentence. How do the words flow in the mouth? And that's where, the detail, where, genius is in the details. And it's like, what's I going to say? In Mighty Man, Denton Phelps is a plumber for Bandicoot, Rooter, and Drain. And he is changed into Mighty Man and tries to save the day by running through a wall and gets knocked unconscious. And so his boss, Orrin Klemper, is calling him on the carpet. And he goes, "You're the top pipe man on the West Coast. You're knocked out from fumes." And he says, "Mr. Klemper, I had a pipe wrench and a plunger, and the clog had to build up, and there was a slope, and the pipes could not have a perfect pitch, and the process properly started with the water and waste, and you weren't wearing your Bandicoot face mask and vapor and particle filtration, were you? You're on suspension." So he's like Perry White in Superman.
Okay.
And the process is always the same, and it has been since the 1970s. I used to write little stories while I was on the air playing music, and it would just be, I had this series called the Burnt Karma Burger in the Restaurant of Life, and I would tell the story of some hapless soul who did something, and something, like a little surprise ending story. And I would do that between music. And then at some point in the 4 hours, I would tell the story. But it's always been, and it's refining that ability that makes it fun and exciting and enthusiastic.
Yeah,
But that's the way it works.
For sure. They say as you practice something, practice makes close to perfect. But I guess we could say practice makes perfect in this case.
Well, it always gets better. And it doesn't feel like it, because sometimes, and writers talk about this all the time, I interviewed a dozen writers at a big Chicago convention, and every single one of them, and some of them had 20 bestsellers, everyone told me separately the same story. I get to a point where I think, I have no more ideas. I don't have any ideas. I suck. All my best is behind me. Now I've run out and it's over. And they go into despair, and they go into this incredible anxiety. And then every one of them said, and I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "I sit down and I wrench every goddamn idea out of my doubting soul, certain that it doesn't mean anything and it won't go anywhere. And I put this word down and that word down, and I don't get up for 4 hours. And then days go by, and then weeks, and I won't even look at it because it sucks. Weeks go by, and I start feeling better. And then I go back and I read what I wrote during that time, and I go, Well, that's pretty good. It's some of the best writing I've ever done.
Mm.
Wow. And some of the writing I do when I'm, everything is going easy, not so good. So our minds are trying to kill us all the time. It's like looking for what's wrong and making a list. It's and so that's why I say in mental radio, one of the stories, and among the stories and the message is that we have to get ahead of our minds with goals. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist, philosopher who was about to publish his life's work and was arrested by the Nazis and thrown into Auschwitz. And in Auschwitz, he realized that the people who were dying around him most weren't the ones who were being sent to the gas chamber. They were the ones who had lost a meaning in their lives. And they would diminish, dwindle, get small, sick, and die. And so he realized, I've got to do my masterwork. And he started writing notes on little scribbled little pieces of paper, and he would hide them away. And he did this for 4 years in 4 different concentration camps. And they were liberated. And after they were liberated, he wrote the book in 9 days. And he was going to call it Choose Life in Spite of Everything. And he called it Man's Search for Meaning. And it sold 12 million copies and was translated into 24 languages and is considered one of the most profound pieces of work ever written. And highly recommended, Man's Search for Meaning. And in it, he says, man is not meant to find equilibrium. Man is at his best when he's struggling and striving toward a freely chosen goal. And it's up to each of us to find that goal. Believe in tragic optimism. Optimism in the face of all evidence to the contrary. He also says that if you can ridicule your phobias, you can rise above them through the use of humor and irony. And that is what mental radio is built on. That we make fun of being afraid. We talk about phobias in a funny way. It's like Guy Good heads off with the whimies, and the whimies are the victims who look for someone to blame, and they've got guns. And you can see it all around us in society. People who are victims, who instead of being afraid, they get angry. And now I've got my gun, and now I'm okay because it's you. You're the problem. That's the problem. Find something to blame. So the mental radio project has 24 chapters. I'm working on chapter 25 right now. I'm trying to take it to television as a multimedia animated series, but there's over 11 hours of stories. And if you listen with earphones, it's all immersive. So the stories are told in surround sound, and sounds come from behind you and move around in your head, and characters move around in your head. And I have 24 pages of rave reviews. It's been called Audio Acid. And I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Wait a minute. Let me see if I can find it.
Definitely paranormal.
It's paranormal, it's fantasy, it's sci-fi, it's parody. And I gotta find bear with me a moment, won't you?
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay, so Craig Ferguson, who's my friend, and I worked with him for 10 years. He said, I listen to mental radio a lot. It's crazy. If all that's going on in your head, I don't know how you can walk. It's Flash Gordon, L. Ron Hubbard, Captain Marvel, Buckaroo Banzai, and everything else. Is it a show, a channel, an area, a movement, whatever it is? I need more of that and more of everything else, or less of everything else. And then John Henson said, Jesus Christ, it's a roller coaster wrapped in a belly laugh, buried in a tuft of Willy Wonka spiritual cotton candy. There's nothing like it. I feel like I need 6 hours of sleep and a meal to prepare for more. It's an audio visual acid trip of spiritual crack. I love that one, and quote it freely. Yeah, it's a good one, and it's really started growing lately. After it'll be 3 years May 1st, and if you start with listening to chapter 15, 16, right in there, when I really figured out how to produce it. All of the stories are funny, the earlier ones. There's a lot of really good stuff, but it gets really crazy. 15, 16, 17, 18, dreams, magic, time, space. We have one in the time episode where we go back in time and move around in time, and we go into the future when everything's got it together and everybody's smarter, and we land in a game show called Time Loop. And it's like Jeopardy, but the contestants are asked Jeopardy-like questions, but have to answer in 10 seconds while they're spinning in a like a tilt-a-whirl. And if they get it wrong, they're catapulted into space and fracture the time-space continuum and end all life as we know it. And that's exactly what happens. They're asked an impossible question, get it wrong, and are catapulted, and there goes the West Coast. Oh God, it's pretty funny. Oh, there's another. If you want to, let's see, what else did I send you? I sent you. There's a funny little one where we talk about dun 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 dun. Oh, blood hornets. Blood hornets is short. It's kind of fun. Let's move to Blaine, Washington, and Adam Storm.
What began as another perfect day in this pastoral village just south of the Canadian border turned gruesome this morning when 74-year-old beekeeper Ernest Mills went to harvest honey for his wife's toast. Instead of honey, he found a hellish freakscape. His hives had been devastated by blood hornets, furious insects with eyes as big as saucers and stingers as long as pokers. Mr. Mills, tell us what happened.
Every morning for the past 55 years, I wake up to the song of the honeybees. Oh boy, I'm lucky. I'm lucky. It's my lucky day. But this morning, silence. Dead silence. I peer into the hive and they were all gone. Their little heads ripped off. There's the damn blood hornets. Tore their little heads off, ate their brains, and filled them with blood. Turned them into slaves.
Good God, zombies.
Yes, zombies.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, like that.
All those sweepers are so cool.
I got one more that I would really like you to hear because it is the actors are just so good, and it's only like a minute long, but it's Malibu Beach Romance.
Hey, Biff, bitchin' house catching rays.
And there she was, Coco. He quickly flexed his six-pack and smiled back. How could he forget the barista from Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf in Tarzana and that fling in the restroom beneath the hot breath of the hand dryer?
I knew I'd find you. Love the Billabong board shorts. You look so hot. Take a walk.
He gazed at her cat-eye Maui Jim Puakenakeni shades, ample bosom and blonde hair wafting in the wind, and flinched. He looked back at the house, lucky that Piper, the love of his life, always slept late. He had to get Coco out of here. He jumped off the deck.
Dude, a sick, rad move. Oh, you look so good.
Yeah, thanks. So, what's up?
I knew you and me were inevitable, Biff, when you ordered that triple shot low-fat latte, hint of vanilla, one Splenda, and it added up to 666. I freaked. But when I did the life path and destiny on it, I realized that the root number was 6 + 6 + 6, or 18, and 1 + 8 is 9.
So turn me on dead, man.
Right? Yeah, our first connection, the number 9.
I love her, Coco, and it turns into, one of those stalker kinds of stories. The stalker from the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf and Tarzana, Coco. Her last name is Poefs, like Cocoa Puffs. It's French, I think.
French twist, maybe same
Yeah,
flavor.
yeah. Well, everything always sounds better in French, doesn't it? It's sort of like the pudding language.
Yeah, it sounds more eloquent.
Yes, you sound much more ethereal and well read. Yeah, so that kind of stuff, and if people are interested in hearing it all, there's a free app for both Apple and Google Play, and you just look up Mental Radio as one word, and you can go to mentalradio.net. You can go to my website, shadoe.com, shadoe.com, and it's all the stuff I've ever done. And there's another website, shadoeart.com, for all the artwork I do. And on shadoe.com, there is a page dedicated to Mental Radio, which are individual stories by themselves, away from having, listening to the whole thing in the temple and the whole storyline that takes a half hour. These are like one-offs where you can hear the stories of Brock Stillwell, the square-jawed jackhammer of a man, Dixon Ticonderoga, Guy Good. There's a black female superhero called Zora. There is Mighty Man. And then there's a lot of parody commercials and stories and plays on breaking news, and then breaking news that's interrupted with now what is breaking news more important than breaking news, and that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
So what else can I share with you?
I guess any other personal or professional goals or endeavors that you have surrounding this, or just anything in general within the broadcasting world?
Well, I'm not really looking to do anything else in the broadcasting world. I'm looking, I am trying to get Mental Radio television, but it's been called very experimental, and it's complicated because there are multiple animation styles in a half-hour show. But there's enough material already created for 2 seasons, like 15 episodes, and it's putting together the resources, because some of it would be AI, and some of it would be like After Effects type experimental visuals, along with different kinds of animation. Some of Dixon is envisioned as being black and white, perhaps, or black and white with a little color that is film noir. And Guy Good is like an artist, famous artist called Mobius, a French artist that died a couple of years ago. And each of them has a different look and a different kind of quality, and that makes it a little harder to sell. But there's that, and then I've written a couple of dozen scripts for series and films. I wrote an animated film based on a book that I wrote for my daughters when they were little, called The Button-Sided Hooey, a name I dreamed. And I thought, well, that sounds like Dr. Seuss. And then I wrote this story that's like, my wife is black, and we have been together forever. And this is basically a black Alice in Wonderland. And it's full of invention and wordplay, and it's an allegory about consciousness, and yet I think funny and full of Alice in Wonderland type of invention. So I'd like to do that.
Very cool.
Will I get a chance? I don't know. But it's that whole thing about try this, try that, work on this, and then the effort I make at trying to bring something to life, I get better at everything else I do. So now at this, excuse me, grand maturity, I feel like I should talk to you in my old man voice. Yes, I've been around for many years, and I'd like to share with you some of my experiences. And I'll cough up a little phlegm, but I can't do that because you got to keep busy, and busyness is the antidote for gloom and despair and depression. When I go in, some days you wake up and you just are in the gloom. And once it gets a hold of you, it's like a fist around your brain and you can't think your way through it. So you've got to be able to have taken actions in the past that, start writing now, write how you feel, write how you're going to feel, write about what's right. There's a wonderful, you ever hear of, what's it called? Pronoia. Pronoia was invented by the Zippies back in the 70s, and it is the opposite of paranoia. And there's books about it. It's really fabulous, very creative.
Interesting.
And they believe that the entire universe is conspiring to shower you with blessings with every breath. And with that, it isn't like a fantasy land. It is an aggressive form of gratitude that systematically looks for what's right in your life. Because there's all these things we take for granted all the time. Oh yeah, I can see. Oh yeah, I can hear. I can walk. I'm not in pain. And your brain is going, yeah, but what if? Oh no. Yeah, but oh God. Why me? Why me? It's like, shut up, get busy. I mean, that's my solution.
They say keeping busy keeps the mind sane.
Absolutely. Because when you're in action, the result is that you are keeping your mind busy. You're focusing on something, you're learning something, and you go like, stay curious. Like I spent years studying religion and studied and practiced Buddhism when I did Kung Fu for 5 years, and the Kabbalah for 2 years. And I studied Islam, and I studied Christianity and Hinduism. And I came to the certainty of the harmony of religions. And in this big piece of art I did that you can find on the Shadow Art website called Hope, it's 9 feet long and 4.5 feet tall. And it's about the beauty that faith has created in the universe. And it is in mosques and in temples and cathedrals and in the Himalayas and in Native American powwows and in whirling dervishes and in the Fibonacci sequence in the form of waves in the ocean and the spinning of galaxies and the certainty that the universe defaults to beauty. And it's up to us to find what is right for me. What practice seems reasonable beyond the dogma and the mythology. And that's where we get to meditation. So I've been meditating for over 50 years and never miss. And now meditate usually at 3 a.m. Last night it was from 3 until 4:20, and then I go back to sleep.
Wow.
And you get to a place where you are in the breathless state, and your body gets so quiet that it's like in a deep sleep. It feels numb and almost like out here around you, like the skin of a soap bubble, and you're consumed with pure awareness. And it's that experience of transcendental consciousness that gives you greater faith in the grand design of the universe. And you find that the deeper you go, the deeper there is to merge into. That's really powerful. And then you start living in possibilities, because if the universe defaults to beauty and is infinite beyond comprehension, and infinity is getting bigger, Infinity is getting bigger. Can you
Yeah.
wrap your mind even around that? No.
No. And I was a math
So how do I
major.
get
No.
there? Or like in Buddhism, how do you
Yeah.
find nirvana? How do you merge into bliss? Well,
Mhm.
action. And the action is learn to meditate and go within. And the deeper you go, the deeper there is to go. So somewhere between the actions you take in the
Yeah.
world and in your work
Mhm.
and your curiosity and your interest and your learning and your reading and your writing, and then getting behind the mind where it shuts all of that down and you stop thinking. And then
Yeah.
and one of the voices in your head, instead of going, yeah, well, this doesn't really work for me. I really have to get that email. And I didn't take a shower and I got these things I have to do tomorrow. And now you get into the deep quiet, and an idea that you've been working on comes
Mhm.
gurgling up. Mellifluous fellow. Oh, I have to remember that. And then you stop thinking again and you're consumed in consciousness.
Mhm.
I highly recommend it. It's the only important thing I've discovered in life. And there have been there's been a lot of research about the benefits, because real meditation is focused. And the more you focus, the better you get at focusing. So you get better at learning things, you get better at solving problems, you get better at relationships. Life gets better.
Mhm.
And transcendental meditation is one way. And they have gone in and given it to children in urban centers that are out of control. And they have tangible evidence of how it improves their lives and settles them down. They've taken it into prisons and they've changed the lives of prisoners. Just be curious and look into it and try it and see if it doesn't benefit your life.
Yeah, you should teach a class on it. Enlighten
I,
others.
one of the things I do is I work with a company in Santa Monica called Resolutions, and it's this pretty big team of therapists and clinicians who help people with real mental problems, suicidal ideation, and real depression and despair, and drug and alcohol abuse, and prescription abuse, and gambling, and abuse.
Mhm.
And I've been working with them for 3 years and have maybe 20 or 30 different sessions with people a month. And each one is an hour long. They're usually sometimes groups and sometimes mostly individuals. But it is that thing about giving back and sharing.
Mhm.
And what good is all this information if I'm not trying to do something with it? So somewhere between mental radio and resolutions and art, my days are full.
Very busy. It's not
Yeah.
9 to 5, it's 24 hours.
Well, it kind of is, and you get so tired and you have to get exercise in there too, because exercise releases dopamine in your brain and you start feeling better about yourself and life and overcoming difficulties and problems and challenges. But in general, it's about taking action and building these little micro habits that turn into ways of life that all fuel expansion. And well, that you're going to school and you're going for greater, bigger rewards and bigger, more thorough investigations of things. And everything that you're doing is really impressive.
Thank you.
So I'm saluting you.
It's been a
Anything
hustle
else?
and a grind.
Yeah.
I guess as we part ways, any last pieces of wisdom that you'd like to share for aspiring professionals?
I think I pretty much covered, all of that. Just to repeat it for the little habit, if you can, like micro habits are things that you can do that take almost no time.
Yeah.
So, if maybe you wake up and the first thing you say when you wake up is thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and you turn over in your bed and you get in a child's pose And while you're stretching yourself and you're thinking, thank you that I can still see and that I've got a roof over my head and I have food and I have something I'm working on, and thank you. And this is like for only a minute or two. And then you get up and maybe do a little meditation, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, but you really try to learn deeper kinds of meditation and just do it, but do it every day, no matter what, because it doesn't take any time. And then maybe write one page, how I feel today, where I'm going, what's going on. Journal, but even if it's one page, that all of that can take less than 30 minutes. And now you've changed the landscape of your day. Instead of your brain going, here we go again. What am I going to have to do today? Well, what is going to go wrong today? And oh yeah, and that's got to be fixed, and this has got to be fixed, and whine and going, shut up, get busy. So my recommendation is shut up, get busy, take action, do the work, and then meditate.
Yeah, I need to do that more. How I got in this broadcasting field, my dad told me that I don't shut up. So, so that's what landed me here.
That's good. Well, you have that passion and enthusiasm, and what a better thing. What's better than enthusiasm? Nothing. There's great quotes about enthusiasm. There's great quotes about spirituality. Einstein said, the more I study science, the more I believe in God. And Dr. Michio Kaku said, there has to be a divine order to the universe, a divine source, because the universe is beautiful and it have to be that way. It could have been chaotic, but it isn't. And that's the God of Einstein, the God of beauty. And then you start looking up physicists. I have lists of physicists who have these brilliant, eloquent statements about what they believe in, in referring to God, spirituality, the infinite what, the almighty mover, the creator, the force, Luke, the force. All of that is all something to take seriously.
Well,
and that's about it, I guess, for now.
No, this was great. Thank you, Shadoe, for being on the podcast, and wishing you great success for Mental Radio, and looking forward to seeing it air on Netflix as an animated series.
That would be nice, or Amazon Prime, or Max, or Hulu, or
any of the streaming services.
Yeah, any of those.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Media Industry Guru podcast. Check out the Instagram at Media Industry Guru for all the details on the latest and coolest upcoming episodes that you will hear. Email at mediaindustrygurupodcast@gmail.com for any other interviews that you would like to hear, or if you would like to be on the air and give a little promo or talk about yourself, or just even chat with me, because I'm doing this, I'm invested in this. And tune in weekly, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, on Tuesdays on the Anchor app, Spotify, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Breaker, and many more streaming platforms. Thanks again for all of the support, and peace out, and let's rock and roll.